Have you ever thought, is this really it? Is this all that I'm meant for in life? If so, then stick around. I promise you are about to remember who you really are, because if you're here, you are not like the rest. But let's be real, people are numb, they're exhausted, they're burnt out. These people who are living these lives are out of alignment. They're not doing what they're truly, truly passionate about. I mean, maybe some of them, sure. But that's not for everybody. Very few and far between is that actually the life path for everybody. Deep down, everybody's got a voice. That voice is your intuition. And we're taught from a very young age to ignore this voice, to push it away, to silence it. We're taught to be a good sheep, follow the herd, follow the script that you're conditioned from a very young age. And for God's sake, don't question anything. It is the way that it is, until we wake up one day feeling completely disconnected from who we really are. This podcast is for those who refuse to stay asleep and who refuse to be sheep and just follow the herd. My name is Kinsey, and this is Soul Sessions. I know what it feels like to follow the script and still feel empty, to do everything that you're supposed to do and still feel like you have nothing, that you're still off track, that you're still not doing what you're supposed to do, that you still feel unfulfilled and unsatisfied. I also know what it's like to lose yourself in toxic relationships, in toxic situations, and in survival mode for most of my life. I have had to completely break down in order to break free, and I do mean my whole life had to crumble in order to finally find my purpose and find where I was supposed to be. And it wasn't motivation that saved me. It was deep healing, inner child healing, deep-rooted work, and mainly learning to trust my intuition and let that be my roadmap to life. And the biggest thing is learning that there's no shortcuts. There's no easy way out through healing. It's healing it and watching as your life changes around that. So if you're done sleepwalking through life, if you are done following the herd and doing what you're supposed to do because everyone else tells you to do it, you want to actually make real change in your life and feel fulfilled and satisfied and happy and have the things that you want in life, then please stick around, because I have so much to teach you, so much to talk to you about, so many things that we can talk about together. But I'll talk more about that at the end. Now let's dig into how to really feel fulfilled in life. So from the second we're born, we're taught to follow the script, right? And I kind of touched on that before. They teach us from a young age that what you are supposed to do in order to be a successful, normal human is to go to school, get good grades so that you can get into college, so that you can get a good career that pays well. Doesn't matter if you feel aligned to it or not, as long as it pays well, so that you can live a successful life, drive nice cars, have nice things, support your family, etc., etc. That's how you become successful, which we have somehow as a society determined that will equal happiness. That is such bullshit. That is not true. Not at all. We were taught, don't be lazy, don't question anything, and that wanting anything other than that scenario is unrealistic and crazy. But I am here to tell you that that is so false. That is how sheep live. People who are not awake, people who are still blinded and in the stupor of the government. People blindly following the herd and never stopping to ask, is this path really mine? Because, I know for me, personally, I was on that path for a long time, and it took me years to stop and think, I always knew that, I didn't want to do that, but I felt like I had to in order to be successful, in order for people to respect me, in order for me to be happy. I had to do the whole thing, right? But the sad part is most people do this. They do the whole college and getting a good career and all of these things, and they're still sad inside. They're still exhausted inside. They might appear happy and abundant and have all of these things, but I promise you deep down they're not. They're not in alignment, so they're not happy. They're not in alignment with their true selves. They're not doing the things that they truly want to do. And when you're not in alignment with what you truly want to do, you become disconnected. And what is living life if you're so disconnected, burnt out, sad, exhausted? What kind of life is that to live if you have a nice house, nice car, nice things, nice clothes? What's the point if you're sad, disconnected, and broken? Society has taught us to ignore the most important voice that we have, our intuition. Our intuition is our roadmap to life. When you learn to, first of all, learn to figure out what your intuition is, and then learn to follow it, your intuition is your roadmap to your success. Following my intuition is what changed my whole life. Following my intuition and learning to trust that and let go of that need for control, that need to try and create the outcome and let my intuition guide me to the outcome changed my entire life, which I'll touch on that in a second. But your intuition, to pick up on it, is that voice inside of you. And it's not like, I always thought intuition was like an actual voice in your head, but it's not. It's that like gut feeling that like, is this really all that there is in life? Is this really like, I'm gonna spend my whole life working for maybe a couple years if I'm lucky of retirement? Like, I don't want to live like that. That's not a life that makes me happy. There's no way that human being, like, the concept of a human being is insane. Like, bones and flesh and skin and a whole person with consciousness, alive, moving, can do anything. Like, a human being, and we're this amazing thing put on this earth to just work and be sad, deep down unfulfilled? You're kidding me. I'm not doing that. Hell no. There's so much more to life than that. But so many people ignore their intuition. They bury it. They numb it with overworking and relationships and addictions and, you know, distractions to just keep themselves from, you know, like, you'll hear people say, oh, I've always dreamt of being this, but I can't do that, so I'm a doctor instead. But I really want to be a ballerina. Like, go be a ballerina. Sorry. Go be a ballerina. Like, that's clearly your life's calling. That would make you feel so fulfilled. You can't take a BMW with you when you die. So what's the point in living life not doing what you want to do? Right? And I feel like, you know, it's so common that these people work so hard. I mean, college is hard, right? You study so hard, you work so hard. Or like, even if you don't go to college and you just work in like a factory or even as like a server, like, you work so hard. You're exhausted, you're burnt out, and then one day you wake up and you're like, I don't even know who I am anymore. What do I even like to do? All of my passions are gone because all I do is work and pay bills. I have no time or money left for myself. Like, who am I? We're taught from a young age, too, to feel guilty for wanting anything other than what we're supposed to want. We're supposed, quote unquote, to want to go to college and live a good life. If you want anything other than that, like, people look at you like you're a piece of shit. People look at you like you're scum. People look at you like you're throwing your life away because you don't want to do those things. Because we're so conditioned to think that that is what you have to do in life. So people think there's something wrong with them and they're afraid to do anything else. But nothing's wrong with you. It's the system that's broken. Like, why are we conditioning people to think that? And I could go on a whole tangent about this, but that was deliberately ingrained in people's head to have to go to college and things. That was 100% a deliberate action. There's a whole history behind that. If you have the time, you should look into it. It's frustrating, to say the least. But we're also taught that hard work makes you really successful. I struggled with this, and I'm not even gonna lie, like, I still struggle with this. To preface, the first 7 years of your life, your brain is in what's called a theta brainwave state. So when your brain is in this state, it's like a sponge, and it's just absorbing and taking in everything that it's seeing, and that builds the foundation of your view on the world, your thoughts, what you know to be true, okay? So for me, growing up, I had a single mom who worked multiple jobs at a time, and her mother, my grandma, also worked very, very hard in a factory 12 hours a day. So like, I grew up knowing that like women work really, really hard, and like, I idolized the women in my life. I respected them a lot. So to me, and like, my mom always taught me you have to work really hard. So to me, like, I learned, and as well as everybody else in the world, that like, hard work is what makes you successful. Hard work is what makes you earn what you want to earn. Hard work is what makes you respected, right? But let me ask you something. When is the last time that you saw a millionaire or a billionaire lift a finger and work hard for something? You don't. They have people working for them. They have investments. They have, you know, other ways of making money, but they don't physically work hard for their money. None of them do. None of them do. Because that is not how you make money. That is not how you become abundant. So we're ingrained these things to keep us working like sheep. We are ingrained these things so that we're all down here working, lower level class working, while the people who don't have to work can remain rich. And then we're taught from a very young age that we can never be them, that we're a different class, and that we will never be them. They ingrain that in our brain. So not true. Literally anybody in this world can become a millionaire. It is 100% possible. Your mind is capable of creating any reality that you can. If you can envision it, you can manifest it. And that is not an opinion, that is quantum physics. Because once you start aligning to certain frequencies and energies, your world, if you're truly aligned to that energy, your reality will shift around it. Opportunities will still start coming to you. Things will start coming to you to help you reach where you're vibrating at that frequency. For an example, I was in a job for 10 years. 10 years. This job I was very comfortable in. Clearly, if I was there for 10 years, right? But I was not respected. I worked so hard at this job. And I lived a lot of different lives in 10 years, right? I had 3 kids while I was working this job. But I was always the one that they could count on. I was always working hard. If something needed to get done, they knew that I would make sure it got done. I pulled doubles for like the first 6 years for 4 days straight. I closed the bar for them constantly. Like, I worked very, very hard for this job. And there were so many times where like I would go in waves of like wanting to leave, but like I just was stuck in this job. I never left. And don't get me wrong, like it was serving in a tourist place, so like I made good money in certain seasons anyways. But I felt as though I could not get out. It took, when I finally had enough after 10 years of like, I'm being treated like shit. I needed off of work for court. For what happened to me in a domestic violence incident where I almost lost my life. I can touch on that if you're interested. Let me know. But they all knew what happened to me. Actually, it was my best friend who was my manager who did the schedule. She was there for everything that happened to me. She knew I almost lost my life. She was there step by step. She came to all the court hearings with me up until that point. Like, she knew what happened to me. But because I needed that day off and that day was hard to schedule, she was so disrespectful and rude to me about how I needed that day off for court. That I don't get to pick the court dates. I don't get to make that choice. So that was kind of my, all right, I'm done. Tossing in the towel, like, I'm so unrespected. And, like, around the same time, it was, like, I was helping people who were really busy behind the bar and, like, not getting a thank you. Even though I was also really busy. They would make cleaning lists, and I was the only one who would do them. I was just over it. So finally, like, I had a really bad day one day, and my whole way home from work, I envisioned so clearly. Tell me this, okay, this is manifestation for sure. I envisioned so clearly how I would put in my 2 weeks notice. How I would tell my boss I was quitting. Because after 10 years, that's a big deal. You can't just, like, nonchalantly throw in your 2 week notice. So I was, like, envisioning how I was going to put in my notice. Now, that was on a Thursday. That week, Wednesday, I had submitted an application online for this, like, clean eating juicery place in town that I love going to. I had applied for them a couple weeks prior on another bad day that I was having. Never heard anything. Friday morning, I got a call from the juicery place. The next day, after I was envisioning how I would put in my 2 weeks notice and all of these things, I got the call for them. They wanted me to come work for them for significant 3 times the hourly salary or the hourly rate that I was making. After 10 years, I was starting at 3 times the hourly rate. Plus tips. So I envisioned my way into that new job. And she even told me that when I applied the first time, she had tried reaching out, and I just missed the call and never even noticed that I missed the call. So that was the universe aligning that, like, I had just happened to see the phone call. I was walking out the door trying to get my twins in the car, like, Life was crazy, but I somehow saw the call and answered it, which I never answer calls from like numbers that I don't know because I get so many scam calls. Because I just bought a house, so like now my number's out there. Once I finally was ready to let go and trust in the universe and trust in where my life was going and trust that whatever was about to happen needed to happen, and that like I needed to stop clinging on to what I was comfortable with and trust in the unknown, trust in the divine that something good was coming for me. There was some reason that I felt called to apply that day. Don't know why. I was just so PO'd at everybody at my job that day because they were all taking advantage of me and my hard work and being rude to me. And also, this is just like a stupid detail. We had this calendar at work and they would put everybody's birthdays in it, and like if we had like large parties coming in, and like they didn't put my birthday in it. And I was so annoyed about that because I had been there for 10 years. I was like, you're not going to put my birthday in there. They knew when my birthday was because it was all I was best friends with all the managers at one point. One point in time, like we were all best friends. So it was petty drama, stupid drama. Like I was just over it. And I would just feel depressed in that building all the time. Like it drained my energy. Energy vampires so bad. But when I would go eat at this other juicery place with clean eating, things that I was really into, which mind you, my old job was a bar and I didn't even drink anymore. But I'd go to this other place and they had plants in the window and it was so bright, big windows, like good energy, positive energy. I just loved it. I was so happy. So happy when that happened. And it's I don't know. It's more of a team. Like the second place was more of like teamwork. Like not everything was on me. Crazy. I didn't have to work hard to feel seen. I never felt seen or recognized or appreciated at my other job. Nobody ever told me good job when I busted my butt doing everything. But anyways, so back to what I was saying. We don't have a motivation problem. We have a disconnection problem. A soul disconnection problem. We're too busy clinging to what we're supposed to be doing, what we're supposed to be achieving, what we're supposed to be doing at this age, that we're so disconnected from our soul and what our calling is. What are your hobbies? What are you good at? What's your dream career? What did you want to be when you were a kid? That's the direction you need to go. Don't worry about how unrealistic it is or how realistic it is. What do you truly enjoy? That is a hint into the right direction. Your dream career, what you're good at, like we all have unique hobbies and interests and things that we're good at. There's a reason for that. There's a reason we all have different hobbies and interests and things like that, because that's the direction you're meant to go with your life. That's why you have talents, abilities, interests, hobbies, because that's where you're supposed to take your career. That's where you're supposed to end up in life. And to be successful and abundant in that, serve humanity with it. Do something in life that makes you help others. So for me, I am now helping people through coaching and online stuff, right? When I was a kid, I used to do theater, but I was very, very shy. That's like the funny part about it is like off of stage could not get me to have a conversation with you. I would run and hide in a bathroom. But on stage, I loved theater. I loved acting. I loved production. I loved everything about it. I loved editing. I loved all things like that. I loved speaking. I would always like in my room by myself, like pretend I was speaking. Like that's how I was as a kid. Then I went through this whole near-death experience, had my spiritual awakening, found my purpose in life, and now I'm using the things that I liked and was good at as a kid to serve others, and it brings me abundance. That is the circle of how you bring abundance into your life, but you have to follow your intuition. Those hits, those, I don't know why I'm feeling called to do this, but I'm going to do it. I don't know where this thought came from, but it's telling me to go here, so I'm going to go here. Not just like ignoring it. If you're feeling called or drawn to something, that's your intuition. That is your sign to say, okay, I need to do this. If you're feeling called or drawn to quit your job and find a new one, that is your intuition speaking. If you're feeling called or drawn to not go to a certain place one night, that is your intuition. You need to learn to tap in and get used to listening to that voice because we're so trained and conditioned to not listen to it. You know, and I didn't figure all of this out overnight. I used to follow the script. I used to, you know, when I first went to college as a single mom, I had my first son at 17, my second son at 19, and then I had twins at 25. I went to college when I was like 20. And I first went for nursing because I was like, well, I'm good at taking care of people, which is good to listen to my intuition because I am a very nurturing person. And I was in it for the money. I knew nursing made good money, so that's why I went to nursing school. Did I thrive in nursing school? Absolutely, I did so good. I became a CNA, and I was also very good in the CNA field. And I do believe that if I were to have gone into nursing, I would have done really well, but I don't think that that was my calling in life. I listened to my intuition when I was thinking about the hours, and I'm too much of a free spirit, and I valued my time with my kids too much that I did not want to dedicate it to a career like that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with nursing. Absolutely. I respect and am grateful for all nurses. I've had some really amazing nurses, especially in when having my kids. But it just wasn't for me. I could feel it wasn't for me. I could feel it wasn't right. So I switched my majors. I went and saw this woman who helps, you know, single moms and getting into college and things like that. And she somehow convinced me that marketing was the way for me to go. And I was young and naive. And I was like, yeah, that is totally my calling. Of course. No, it was not. It was not my calling at all. So I was in business school for a few months. And then I got into my abusive relationship and quote unquote, went on a break from school. So never dropped out per se, just kind of stopped going. But yeah, I was trying to do, as a single mom, I was trying to do the whole go to college, get a good job. I was doing the things. I was doing what I was ingrained that I was supposed to do. But then I had my spiritual awakening. And, you know, even before that, I stayed in abusive relationships for too long. I told you about my job I stayed in for too long. I grew up learning that, you don't give up. I'm so resilient. I was such a resilient person on the outside, but on the inside, I was so broken. I was crying all the time. I was crying myself to sleep. I was so depressed. I had everything going wrong for me, you know, cars constantly breaking down, relationships constantly being awful, so much happening wrong for me because I was on the wrong path. When you're ignoring your intuition and you're going down the wrong path in life, things are going to keep blocking you and going wrong and trying to steer you in another direction. And that's the universe trying to redirect you to the right direction. Ignoring your intuition is just going to lead you down the wrong path, and the universe is going to have to throw roadblocks at you trying to be like, nope, you need to go this way. Mine happened to almost end my life. That was my wake-up call. But a few months before that, I had started looking into healing and going down that journey, and I started elevating, and my ex was not elevating. He was just drinking a lot. So, you know, when I had my spiritual awakening and found my purpose, that's when I started to change my life. And I want to be clear that this doesn't happen overnight and it takes work. I know what it's like to feel trapped in a life that doesn't feel like yours. I felt trapped for years. The biggest shift that I can share with you that I had was changing my identity with myself. I identified myself as a poor single mom for years. Because I was a poor single mom, everyone viewed me as a poor single mom, so I lived my life like a poor single mom. And that kept me in that box of being a poor single mom. I couldn't have anything else because that's what I was. And at that, I was a poor single mom who was in abusive relationships. But then I had my spiritual awakening, and I found my purpose. And when I had the identity shift of, I'm not just a mom. In general, I'm not just a mom. I'm a healer. I'm an intuitive. I am a speaker. I am someone meant to help people. I'm more than just a mom. That's not my identity. That's when my world started to change. That's when reality started to change with me, because my vibration, my elevation, everything started to change. My frequency started to change. The moment that I said, I can't live like this anymore. I can't keep having these relationships. I can't keep having shitty jobs. I can't keep having people take advantage of me. I can't keep being poor. Like, I can't have this. When I said that to myself, and when I went through my near-death experience, that pain, it cracked me open. Wide open. That's when my eyes opened to the whole world of healing and what it can do for you. Healing isn't just to make you feel better. Healing changes your whole life. I started to question everything. Like, why have I let people treat me like this for so long? Why do I keep dating the people that I'm dating? And then that leads to healing, and it led to father wounds and mother wounds and abandonment wounds. I had to heal all of those. Healing those led to different things. And then you go down these rabbit holes and you start to, like, you don't even realize it's happening until you stop and really look, but your whole life changes. A year and a half ago, I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't know how I was going to provide for my kids. And now I just bought a house and I'm starting a podcast. I have my first speaking event coming up in a month. And I'm about to turn 28 in a couple days. Like, your life can change so fast once you start doing the work. Start actually focusing on the work and knowing that you're capable of doing it and actually trying. We're not meant to just survive. We are meant to feel alive. What makes you feel alive? What really sparks, what ignites that spark in your soul? What makes you want to, like, get up and go, That's what you should be following. Pair that with your intuition as your roadmap, and you will succeed and you will make it so far. But following blindly the herd is not going to lead you to a life of fulfillment and happiness. You can't be afraid to be judged. You can't be afraid for people to say, what the hell are you doing? That's not going to be good for you. Why would you do that? I have that daily from people. And at first it's very uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. At first, when you first start doing things that people are like, oh my God, why are you doing that? You're quitting your job that you've been at for 10 years that's stable? Why are you doing that? You eventually you start to, like, actually find entertainment in people's reactions to these things. Or like when you start to post online, if that's something that you feel called to do. People are like, oh, I see your TikToks. And at first you're like, oh my God, don't watch them. But then you're like, okay, so why don't you like them if you're watching? Like, I can see that you didn't like them, so what are you doing? You become more empowered the more that you do these things. So you're not crazy. You're not unrealistic for wanting more in life. You're not selfish either. You should want the most that you can get out of life. So you're not crazy. You're not unrealistic. You are just waking up, my friend, and I'm so happy for you. If you enjoyed today's soul session, I would love for you to stick around. This podcast is for the black sheep, the outcasts, the people who are finally waking up, the ones who know that there's more out there than just settling. It's for the healers, the speakers, the teachers, the spiritually awake, the ones who are just different. Over here, we talk about all kinds of things. We talk about healing, consciousness, intuition, following your life path, relationships, breaking society's programming, spirituality, self-worth, manifestation, and just becoming the most authentic, powerful version of you. And I just want to remind you that you're not here by accident. Your soul led you here. There's no such thing as coincidences. So if any of that felt right for you, I would love for you to subscribe and stick around. I think next time we might talk about why we lose our power and how we get it back. So if that interests you, then make sure you tune in next week for our next soul session. Other than that, I'm so happy you're here, and I will see you next time.